All right, welcome to the Stream Team Show, episode 3. I'm here with my gang, the Stream Team. We got Aaron and Sarah helping us break down TV shows tonight, streaming TV series. Happy Thanksgiving, belated. How was everyone's Thanksgiving? How about Sarah?
It was fine.
And Aaron, how was your Thanksgiving?
Good. It's been a busy weekend. I took a little extra time off because work's been crazy and it's going to get crazier coming up. But Thanksgiving was good. No
Great.
complaints.
Anything new series-wise, Sarah, you're watching?
A lot of stuff I can't talk about yet. It's just that time of year. No, I finished Cowboy Bebop. I finished The Great. And the first 2 episodes of Hawkeye hit Disney Plus.
Yep.
And there's a couple new movies on Netflix. Halle Berry's Bruised, which is an MMA movie.
I saw it.
I guess if you like MMA, that's not my bag. That wasn't for me.
I heard that she got complaints because she was actually like really hitting the people and like they were obviously not allowed to slug Halle Berry back. But like I heard that there were multiple complaints filed by the extras or the people she was fighting that she was hitting way too hard.
Super cool.
Yeah,
So
crazy.
Halle Berry's a couple years older than me, and
She is in phenomenal shape. Like, to be fair, the fight scenes looked great. That movie was not for me. I don't like boxing. I don't like MMA. So I'm just like, and then also the musical, which is also not my bag. Tick, Tick, Boom, directed by Lin-Manuel Miranda and starring Andrew Garfield. If you do like musicals, it's about the guy who wrote Rent. So there's a little bit of American musical history. But yeah, I'm watching a lot of stuff right now that I'm like, this is not my thing.
Well, I'm going to ask you about Cowboy Bebop. We'll come back to that one in a second. Aaron, have you seen Cowboy Bebop?
Yeah, actually, I finished watching the other Netflix show, Hellbound, which is outstanding. If you like foreign shows, you don't mind subtitles. Which really, if you mind subtitles, you're missing out. You gotta start watching those shows. Crazy ending at the end of Hellbound, but my girlfriend and I just started Cowboy Bebop as well, so we're about halfway through and we're really enjoying it.
Okay, that's on Netflix. How many episodes?
10.
It's 10.
Yep.
And I have to say, like, it's a little bit a return to the earlier Netflix problem. I feel like they've gotten better about this, but it's maybe 1 or 2 episodes too long. They probably could have tightened it up a little bit. But they're not like onerously long episodes. They're all about 45 to 50 minutes.
Well, yeah, there's like an hour, and then it's 47 minutes, and then it's 35 minutes, and then it's an hour again. That was one of the things I noticed was kind of strange.
So it's not like you're watching like super long episodes, but I did have a couple of points in the whole series where I'm like, this probably could have been a little bit tighter.
So is this Hellbound's made in South Korea?
Correct.
Is Cowboy Bebop made in Japan or is it in USA?
That's America.
No,
Okay.
It's based on an anime that was made in Japan. That was really popular in the 2000s, like a hugely influential. Like if you know the show Firefly, the Joss Whedon show Firefly. Basically ripped off Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah.
Are we talking Firefly that they made a movie called Serenity?
Yes.
Yeah, with Nathan Fillion.
Yeah. It's really ripping off Cowboy Bebop. It's amazing to watch the live action Cowboy Bebop and be like, this is a lot like Firefly.
I never
and then
thought about that.
Firefly is a lot like Cowboy Bebop because I think Cowboy Bebop came first.
So Noelle's in the chat room. She's asking if we've watched Arcane. I do not know that show.
No,
I'm not familiar.
It's an animated show on Netflix. I've heard good things about it, but I've had to choke down several things lately that I'm just like, this is not stuff I'm into. It's not stuff I would choose to watch. I have to for work.
Like Wheel of Time.
Like Wheel of Time. So Arcane is kind of like, I'm just like, miss me.
I think anime. I can't believe Aaron hasn't seen it yet.
I think it's on my list. I think I've wanted to watch it. I haven't had a chance to get to it yet. I've had some things I needed to finish up, but I have noticed it. I'll probably pick it up and knock it out in the weekend, but I do plan on watching it.
Excellent. So before we get into a little Hawkeye talk and we recap Wheel of Time episode 4, which is coming up, I saw King Richard, which is the Venus and Serena Williams. Gotta say, I really enjoyed it. I mean, I was not expecting much, and I was pleasantly surprised. I thought Will Smith did a fantastic job as the father of Venus and Serena. I loved the character and I hated the character at the same time. I thought that was...
He's a sport dad. I kind of think you're supposed to feel that way.
Right. I mean, you're like, he's a great dad. Oh, he's such a pain in the ass. You know, I don't know. Have you guys seen the movie
I
yet?
have, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'll be surprised if he's not nominated for.
Oh, he's
for
the
Best
current
Acting?
front runner.
Okay.
Like Will Smith is currently, and it's a very competitive year, and Best Actor has not been this competitive in recent years, but right now he's the front runner.
Yeah,
So.
he was outstanding. I mean, he brought the character to life. I mean, you hated him. You love his physical movements, everything. Just great character. I won't forget that character for quite some time. I did catch the first 2 episodes of Hawkeye. I really enjoyed it as well. I love. Is it Haley Stansfeld?
Haley Steinfeld.
Haley Steinfeld. Really enjoyed her, man. I thought she was really funny, and I enjoyed the character. She was. Can I say she was snarky?
Oh yeah,
snarky.
She's supposed to be.
I don't want to steal your.
No,
your
I have
handle.
to say, like, fans are usually wrong. Fans are almost never right. And when people are like, they should listen to the fans, I'm like, never listen to the fans. They're full of shit. But in this case, Haley Steinfeld was the big fan cast for Kate Bishop. If you went on Tumblr or Pinterest or Instagram, you would see a ton of fan art, like photoshopping Haley Steinfeld in the shots with Clint Barton or illustrations of her as Kate Bishop. Because in the comic that this is based on, which is written by Matt Fraction, I believe Alexander Asia that's a filmmaker. The art, I'll have to look it up, but it's called My Life is a Weapon. It's, I think, about 12 issues. It's 3 or 4 trade paperback. It's really, really good. It's David Asia. David Asia is the artist, and it's drawn in a style that is the face simple. It's not realistic illustration. Some comic books, get really detailed. But it's just very like sharp, kind of clean lines. So the expressions on the faces are usually limited to like a frown or maybe like eye scrunches, because it's not really overdrawing the faces.
Sure.
So Kate is distinguished in art by, she has black hair and she wears purple. And so I thought, like, when people would illustrate Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop, I was never like totally sold on it, because she has a very young face. She's kind of on the border of what I call a forever child, which is someone like Tom Holland or Selena Gomez, who kind of how no matter old they get, they just look really fresh-faced and young. She's kind of like, she's got very round baby cheeks. She has a very round face. And in the comics, Kate's face is kind of long and angular because that's the art style. But seeing her in action with the humor, with the sass, like the way she sasses her mom, and it's like, she's perfect. They've knocked it out of the park. If they're pinning a lot of hopes on her for Young Avengers, and I'm like, look, we'll see how the recasting of Cassie Lang works out in Ant-Man 3, because they've got a new actress playing her. But I'm like, you've got Kate Bishop on lock. And that's the big hurdle for the Young Avengers. Like, you have to get Kate Bishop right, because she's one of the main leaders. And she's perfect. So, and her chemistry with Jeremy Renner is great. He is just, I love Clint Barton in the comics. He's my favorite. And I've been very bummed out in the movies that he hasn't been understood better as a character, that he hasn't been, I get that he's not like the main guy. He's never going to be the main guy, but I really do think like there's a way to use Clint. And ironically, like the first Thor movie, when he showed up in a cameo and he's snarking with Coulson over the comms, I was like, it's Clint. It's perfect. This is everything I want out of the character. Absolutely perfect. And then I saw the Avengers and I was like, oh no.
Swing and a miss.
like they don't know what to do with him in a larger context. Which is weird, because they've got 50 years of comics of Clint being like the perfect side character. But Matt Fraction's comic book run, and I always say this to people, if you've ever wanted to read a superhero comic and you don't know where to start and it seems really intimidating and there's too much, My Life is a Weapon by Matt Fraction is a self-contained story, beginning to end. And it's not terribly long. Again, it's like 3 trade paperbacks, maybe 100 pages, 150 pages total. It's a great story. It's a great superhero comic, and you can handle it. You don't need 100 years of continuity to understand it. So I always recommend that as like a great starting place. Like, read that one. If you like it, try Hawkeye vs. Deadpool, another kind of great self-contained story arc, which I would love to see in the movies before Jeremy Renner is too old.
Any of the versus Deadpool ones are good. I've got a number of them on my shelf over here.
Noelle says, I blame Whedon for movie Hawkeye. I do too. But there's also, Kevin Feige has to eat a little bit of this because My Life is a Weapon debuted in 2012 when Whedon was working on the script for Age of Ultron, which is where they went critically wrong with Clint. He was salvageable coming out of the Avengers. He didn't make a huge mark, not much of a character there, but not so damaging that they couldn't fix it. What Whedon did, and I get it, I understand what he was trying to do, which is in Age of Ultron, there is a theme of men with the problem of gods, heroes with feet of clay. There's a very deliberate framing at the beginning of the movie. They start in Avengers Tower, high above everything in their own rarefied world. Sam Wilson even says your world is crazy. And at the end of the movie, they're on ground level. Like they have kind of come back down to earth and sort of, and Clint is a big part of that because they find out he has a family. He has this whole secret life.
Yeah.
Problem with that is I absolutely detest in any story, in any medium, the idea that, and this is a huge problem I have with the recent James Bond movie, that the only way to give a character stakes is to give them fucking kids. I just hate that. It's cheap, easy, lazy writing. It's like, please imagine something else. Because there's a lot of people in the world who don't have kids and they live perfectly fulfilling lives and they have a lot of people and things that they care about, and you don't need kids to be morally invested in the universe. But it's also that in the comics, Clint only has a family in one iteration, in one continuity, and they only exist to be killed. Like it's not Clint with family. It's not a real thing. It's not something that defines the character. If you said talk about Hawkeye from the comics, him having a family would never come up.
Yeah.
And so the fact that they saddled him with that in the movies, I'm just like, oh no. And meanwhile, My Life is a Weapon is this stellar, amazing comic, generally regarded as one of the best superhero comics of the 2010s. And what he does in that is what I would have liked to see in the MCU, because if Clint is supposed to be the character that is the most human, the most grounded, not just the most physically vulnerable, but literally the most grounded, the most in touch, because the Avengers are, Thor's literally a god from space. Cap he's a man out of time, but he is literally like, he's just like an Adonis walking Earth. Like he's not connected to reality. Tony's a billionaire, so he's totally unplugged from normal problems. If Clint is that guy, what he does in My Life as a Weapon is he owns an apartment building in Brooklyn. And he's an orphan and he has an itinerant childhood. And what he has done as an adult is build himself a community where he has people who depend on him in a way that has nothing to do with his strength, his ability, his connections to the Avengers, where just Clint the man has value as just Clint the man. And you could say, well, he gets all that with the family. It's like, okay, but they dismissed his family from the TV show in the first episode. The family is in the way. That's why his daughter is not the one training to be Hawkeye's replacement. That's why they got those kids back to Iowa as soon as they could. The kids are in the way. And it kind of changes his connection with Kate, because it's not like they don't really have surrogate dad-daughter vibes, because Clint in the comics is not that old. He kind of reads as like 30s-ish, permanently 30s.
It wouldn't be as interesting if it was his daughter in real life.
Right. Well, no, I know. That's why the secret family's dumb. Literally, no one cares if Clint has a family. There's other ways to establish that he's the normal one beyond that. Especially because...
For a secret agent, I mean, it seems so incongruous to have a family with him.
It's so dumb. Like the minute you think about it, you're like, this is so stupid.
It seems like a device to turn him into Ronin in the second Avengers Endgame.
Well, you can still do that.
He lost everything. Yeah,
you
it's just
still do that where he feels like, because you could still have established like he had a life. Because if you go back and like hindsight's 2020, and you can always armchair quarterback things. But if you reassess Age of Ultron, we're like, okay, there's no secret family, but at some point the Avengers find out that Clint has formed this community around him that has nothing to do with the Avengers, that they don't care that he's an Avenger. They all know he's Hawkeye and none of them give a shit, that, and then you could say, oh, well, all those people died. You could still, again, like a family is not the only stakes. Like he could still lose people. He could still just generally feel like a lot of good people.
Have you seen all the Hawkeye episodes, or?
I've seen 4 out of 6.
Okay, I've only seen the first 2. So that's all that dropped. But
I mean, I do really like it. It's in spirit. It's very much the Matt Fraction run. I hate the secret family. I just hate it. And again, like I hate it in anything. Like I hated it in James Bond. I was like, oh my God, secret fucking
I didn't even
family.
know they did that. Jesus Christ.
It's just like people are like, how do we give this character human stakes? And it's like, if all you can think of is kids, please expand your imagination. Because again, there are millions of people in the world who don't have children who still are morally invested in the world around them. So
right. They kind of live there. So yeah, I imagine that they want good things to happen. Absolutely.
And Cowboy Bebop, you're both enjoying the series, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I do feel like I have to add the caveat that I haven't seen the anime, so I have nothing to compare it to.
Okay, neither have I.
Because anime watchers don't seem to like it. So.
I got to tell you, I tried to watch one of the anime episodes. I couldn't get into it, but I don't know if I started.
Old. It's old though, bro. I mean, even
well,
looking
I don't
back
think I
at
started
it,
at the bottom. It was on.
Oh.
And I didn't know where it was. I just I'll turn it on and see what it's about. You know, maybe I could get into it, but couldn't get into it. So I think I'll probably enjoy the TV show. Wife and I will have to check that out. We always are looking for something new. I'm still watching Yellow Jackets. Am I the only one watching Yellow Jackets, or you're watching it, aren't you, Sarah?
I've seen a few episodes. It's not something I have to cover, and this time of year is my
editorial
calendar is like really packed. So it's kind of on my like for my week post Christmas. I have like a list of things that I don't have to watch, but I want to see, and I'm like, it's on that list of like finish Yellow Jackets.
Yeah, and of course I finished Foundation, which I enjoyed, and in the middle of Invasion. Apple TV has had a couple interesting shows I enjoyed. All right, let's. Should we say we get into a little Wheel of Time, episode 4? Break it down. That's what we're gonna break down the episode. It has some concurrent storylines going on because, as you know, the 4 kids have been separated. Actually, 5, if you include Nynaeve as well.
Yeah.
She reads, and I haven't Googled anyone's ages, but she and I can't, older, and I refuse to. I just keep calling her Ninian. I refuse to learn her name. But she reads older. She reads more of like Moraine and Lan.
Yeah.
I feel like she's supposed to be pretty close to the others, especially since they've aged those kids up.
She was like 5 to 10 years older than the kids in the
She reads the same age as the kids in the show. Or no, she doesn't. I feel like she's supposed to be around maybe just a few years older. Maybe like she was a senior in high school when they were freshmen. That's that's kind of the dynamic that I'm reading.
I think she's like 5 years older than them in the show.
But she seems in the show
much older.
I get the context. Like I think she's supposed to be closer to them in age, but she seems much older.
Yeah, she was kind of mature for her age as well in the books. We get the opening scene is the siege of the town Gildan by Logan Ablar, who is he's played by
Logain. Thank you very much.
Logan Ablar, played by this guy, the professor from Money Heist.
Money Heist. Okay, the whole time I was watching it, I was like, he is so familiar. He is so familiar. He's the professor from Money Heist.
Yeah. Is that why you asked me, Tooch, if I seen Money Heist?
Yes.
You didn't clarify. Okay, that's funny. Yeah, right on, man.
So the Logan is played by the professor. It took me a little bit to place who he was, but you get a little bit of this character's backstory. Claiming to be the Dragon Reborn. The actor's name is Alvaro Morte, from a Spanish actor, and of course the Aes Sedai in their camp. That's one of the storylines, and then they've got him in a cage and trying to keep his power down. You do get to see for the first time a man using the one power. It's black, instead of when you see the women using it.
In the first episode, we saw another guy who was using it, and he had a companion with him. And then they were like, "Oh, there's nobody there," and you realize he's just talking to himself.
Right. Yes.
And this was like a different way of visualizing that, which I have no problem with how the show looks. That looked really cool with those smoky people whispering in his ears. I was like, "Oh, neat. That looks neat." I don't give a shit about this guy.
Yeah,
that's funny.
I just don't care about any of these characters.
Which is, again, I keep coming back to like, I don't know whether Rafe Judkins and company had a choice to make of whether or not to make this for book readers or You know, it would be stupid if they did, but I mean, maybe they just didn't have any other way to do it.
It feels to me like they're trying to split the difference.
Yeah.
Like they're trying to appeal. They're trying to put enough in there that book readers will be happy.
Yep.
I'm going to say this having never read the books and never gonna read the books. Maybe the books are bad.
Oh, the books are great.
Maybe the books aren't bad. Because I was watching this episode and I'm like, we're 4 episodes in. It's halfway through. It's an 8-episode season rather. And I was thinking this story is not that complicated. It's really not. Mm-hmm. It's the actual conflict that's happening. Not that complicated. And I was like, do we like 15 books for this? It's just not that. It's actually not that complex. And this is where fantasy stories often lose me, is they're not that complicated. And it's just a million words explaining shit that I would rather be hearing about. Like, oh, 10,000 years ago, there was this battle at this castle where this thing happened. I'm like, let's watch that.
Right. I can see that. Absolutely.
So what they're trying to do is like weave together, you know, some separate storylines. I don't know. Maybe it'll break out a little bit later. It'll be.
We are halfway through the season.
We're halfway through the season. This is the halfway mark.
If it's really going to break out, it needs to do it.
I have all the books as backstory for me. So I mean, I'm really enjoying it because you know I know the full story. You know, the books were great. You know. But there's 15 of them exactly. So it's very rich.
I mean, it seems unnecessary.
Is it rich?
Yeah,
is it just descriptive?
It's both. It's both. There's lots of good here. I'll give you an example. Let's not from the books, but from the TV show of where you could find some of this. Let's talk about. You get a couple of insights into some of the sort of philosophy or wisdom of the books or story of the show. First one would be from the Tuathan, and those are the traveling people. And Ela is one of the main characters who's played by her, Aunt Jocasta from Outlander.
That's where I know her from. God,
Maria Doyle Kennedy, Irish actress. She was also in a movie called The Commitments, one of my favorite movies of all time. If you've never seen it.
Can I just say also, I enjoy all the Irish accents and not everybody's goddamn British in this show. Like that drives me nuts about any show where everybody's got the same accent. There's enough Irish and a few Scottish people in here.
I want to see a fantasy show where everyone's American.
I would too. I would love
that. Or Australian.
That'd be fine too, yeah.
That would be cool.
Like the accents that we never hear. I know we hear a little bit of American in Star Wars. But I just feel like make a fantasy show and use all the accents you never hear. Southeast Asian, American, Australian.
Like Australian.
We always get English actors because English is their native language.
Well, I just also feel like we really heavily associate fantasy worlds with medieval Europe.
Fair enough. That's a good point. That's a really good point.
So they always have
frozen, my friend. Did we lose him?
I think we've lost.
I think we lost Tooch. But no, you know what? That's funny is because I always kind of wondered too. With like, why is every fantasy story? I mean, most shows too. Like I'm sure you watched Chernobyl, right? Mm-hmm. Where everybody's British, like Gregory.
I do feel like also you have, if you're making it in the English language, which Chernobyl is, and I love Chernobyl, love that show, and I recommended everyone. I was like, everybody watch Chernobyl, and then I hadn't seen the dog episode, so I felt really bad when the dog episode hit.
Yeah.
But I feel like you also have a thing where some of those accents are really hard. Russian's a really hard accent to do. And you kind of have to make that choice of like, do we just say everybody? Because English actors, particularly, they all go to drama school. Most of them go to drama school where they learn received pronunciation. Yeah. So they all have kind of a standardized accent. And it's like, do we just do that accent that they all learned in drama school? Or do we make them try and risk failing at the Russian accent?
I imagine too, because it would be pretty. I mean, even the people who aren't super versed in Russian accent, I imagine it'd be pretty easy to pick out a faker. Be like, that guy is clearly putting on an accent. So I guess like I never considered that.
You really run the risk. So I get why they kind of say like it's an English language production. We're just going to standardize everything to an English accent.
All right, well enough. Fair enough.
But I still feel like let's make a fantasy show where everyone's Good day, mate.
Yeah, right. So look at that. It's a wizard over there. Like, yeah, it'd be kind of funny to
You gotta go get the wizard out of the
right. Hey.
All of them have that accent. I feel like that'd be really.
I'd watch it. I'd be
because you would be surprised. It's not an accent we hear in fantasy world.
shocked. Yeah.
Just hear like a bunch of Americans and Aussies and people with like various Southeast Asian accents running around.
Completely leave the Brits and anybody with an English accent out of it. Just throwing some really weird ones out there. I'm trying to think because there's not necessarily fantasy, but there's one on Netflix and I cannot remember the name of it. But it's about people who come back from the dead. Like there's somebody that's been dead since like the Civil War times in Australia, and they all just like come out of the grave. And I can't remember what the heck it's called, but that's an Australian show.
Oh, that sounds cool.
But it's based in our world, and it's. I keep thinking it's The Return, but that's obviously not it. That's another one. I have to find out to it. And just a heads up, we lost Tooch. He is having internet connectivity issues at the moment. So going forward is kind of tough without knowing the much of the books.
It shouldn't be though. Like we shouldn't need to know the books. Again, like a successful adaptation should survive. It should stand on its own. You shouldn't need to read the books. Like after seeing Game of Thrones, I don't feel like I need to read the books. After seeing Lord of the Rings, I don't feel like I need to read the books. You shouldn't need it. And I do feel like the main plot points, the big conflicts, like I'm getting all of that. Like that's good. I'm not having any problem following what's happening, who wants what. I get it. It's just these characters are so bland. And,
there he is.
We have Noelle saying
internet crapped out here. I don't know.
That's a bummer.
She's saying the problem, she doesn't care about the characters. And it's like, I'm not really latching on to these characters. And, I get that Ninian or whatever her face is and Lan are supposed to be falling in love or whatever, but I feel like they don't have great chemistry. I feel like his one little interaction with Moraine was much more loaded and tense. So, I just kind of feel like that's just like a problem of casting, maybe. Again, Rosamund Pike is a very hot person, so she stands next to anyone, and you're just like,
you're looking like a crap next to her, absolutely,
But it just, I don't know. I don't really care. I really don't care about the kids. I'm a little bit intrigued by the White Cloaks and like what's going on with the different factions. Like, oh, these women are all part of this sisterhood, but they don't all like each other. And I'm kind of more interested.
There's
in
a
that
rivalry
stuff.
for sure.
Yeah, the greens and blues and the reds.
The Aes Sedai, which we find out means servants of all. What I was saying before we left, you have Aunt Jocasta telling us about the Way of the Leaf.
That was a big. I did this at
the Tuathan. You get some of the kind of this fantasy wisdom, Lord of the Rings type. You have she gives you a couple good nuggets. One of them is what there's only one way to end violence. Everyone everywhere must stop. Or what better revenge against violence than peace? What better revenge against death than life? You get little ones like that. You have the Glee Man giving you a little taste of that too, as well. There's nothing's more dangerous than a man who knows the past.
I wonder too, and I can't remember the girl of the five, the younger one. They kind of have a connection. I almost wonder because did he say how old he is?
He hasn't met the girl.
No, I think we may be talking about two different people. I'm talking about the person in the camp.
Oh no, he's definitely hitting on her. I think he's about the same age.
Sure.
He's 100% hitting on her.
Dude, I'm wondering if
the boy with the green eyes.
Yeah,
I'm wondering if when she becomes, I don't know, just far down the road, if she becomes Aes Sedai, is she going to have him as her ward? Because he talks about going out on his own, or when you hit a certain age, 20-year-olds.
We did find out that the Tinkers have Rumspringa.
Yeah, like the Amish leaving for a walk in the world.
My issue with the world building, it's not like, oh, they're dropping bits of wisdom. Like, great, those are all perfect bumper stickers to put on your caravan or whatever. And we see that Lan practices a religion. Wonderful, fantastic, good for him. It's more, it doesn't feel lived in. None of it feels tangible. Lan practicing his religion, his prayer, what he was doing seemed a little bit more like, okay, this is a ritual he clearly indulges every day, every week, frequently. He does it enough that he can do it anywhere. That feels a little more lived in. but like the Aunt Jocasta lady being like, oh yeah, here's all our little nuggets of wisdom. It's like, all right, but I'm not seeing any of that in practice.
Right.
Just
They
things that
have
you are
their,
saying.
they're looking for their song, which they claim is lost at the breaking of the
And
world.
that's more interesting. And maybe if we had, I hate to say it because I'm not liking watching the show, but maybe if we had more time to spend with them, that would be. It's show don't tell. I feel like there's a lot of tell and very little show.
Yeah, there is, and that's part of the thing of adapting 15 books into, eight episodes.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of how I kind of feel like either this first season should have been a much narrower slice of the pie, and as much as it would have pissed off book readers, maybe part of that would be just eliminating some of these characters, just to get rid of some of the characters, like compound some people into one and simplify it, or blow it out and make it way bigger, because I just feel like I need more or less of this, and to compare it to Cowboy Bebop a little bit. Because that's like a future that's in space. Humanity has left Earth. Everyone's living all over the solar system. It focuses on 3 characters. It's very narrowly focused on 3 characters, and you really feel that world.
4, the dog's a part of it too?
Well, the dog, but he doesn't have a lot of dialogue.
Fair enough. It's still my favorite part of the show.
But you really feel like, and it was an interesting thing to learn because we're seeing the dog, we're seeing people interact with the dog, how different people in different places react to the dog, to learn that dogs are rare and they're really expensive and they're in zoos, and most people have never seen a real dog. And that's an interesting piece of world building. And the way that we learn that is through the way that different people on the show interact with the dog. And it's not like anyone sat down and said, dogs are rare and expensive and in zoos. It's something we learn in bits and pieces over a couple of episodes once the dog is introduced.
I even felt like it was the first one face spit it all up beautifully, and it was genuine reaction. Oh my god, it's a dog! I've never seen one.
They had a big reaction of she literally didn't know what she was looking at. She had a real moment of what is that? And when she realized it was a dog, she was like, I've only seen them in zoos. But we had already kind of picked up like context clues of they're expensive and you pay taxes on them. And and it just comes through different people. And then Faye's kind of crowning reaction of, I've only seen that in a zoo.
Right.
Kind of puts all of those pieces together to be like, okay, I understand dogs in this world. And Wheel of Time is just, I feel like it's a lot of people. And I know it's not literally this, but it feels a lot of people sitting in a room talking at each other and no context, no tangible context happening around it.
Yeah, they haven't done a great job of hooking you, and 2 of setting up in a digestible way. I mean, look, I want to talk about, like Noel's point there, the internal politics of the Aes Sedai, by far the most interesting element of the show. And in this episode, well, you learn a lot about the Aes Sedai in this one. I'll tell you, not only do you learn what the name means, but you also learn that the Green Aja, they can have more than one warder, and it looks like they're taking them to bed for a little orgy action.
The one certainly did. Yeah.
Did y'all get that from the? I mean, they were going to bed.
I think they made that pretty clear. That they were, well, because the girl in the camp looked at one of the other warders and said, "Did they go together?" And he just kind of smiled, kind of a deal. But that again is there. I do like the diversity, right? So the woman that took the 2 guys to bed was like a Hindu, kind of Indian heritage. It looked like, and the other one was a black girl, kind of a deal. So they're really, and I don't see enough, in my opinion, people of Indian heritage, Eastern Asian in fantasy stuff. I love seeing that kind of stuff. Like that's one that I think for sure could have a bigger voice as far as fantasy goes.
Pitch. A fantasy show with it's just Americans and Aussies and Southeast Asian and East Asian actors.
I'd watch that. Can you imagine how funny it'd be from a bunch of dudes, like just one show of like dragons and like dudes from Boston?
Well, that actually is. There's a movie from China from a few years ago called The Great Wall that was sort of.
I love that.
An attempt at Hollywood filmmaking where it's very much like Chinese fantasy filmmaking, and Matt Damon's randomly there.
I like that movie. He had an Irish accent, but no, it's funny. Anything with monsters, and I really enjoyed The Great Wall, but that's Well,
there are some really great made in China, so it's subtitles. You have to read, but there are some great fantasy films coming out of China over the last 10, 15 years.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon launched all that. It was beautiful.
That was
Yeah.
a long time ago. That was an old one. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
movie.
a lot of the wuxia stuff, but I say like we need more of it, but like you can fully go watch movies made in India, made in China, like made in Japan for their own audiences that absolutely are
South Korea is my
fantasy.
favorite, absolute favorite. Like if I had a gun to my head and said you can have one country that you could watch movies from the rest of your life, it'd be tough between South Korea and the US for me. I absolutely love movies from South Korea.
Yeah, no, and again, like there absolutely are fantasy films that exist in these different cultures.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like in the English speaking cinema, like I would love to see a fantasy movie that's like non-British accents. Like
Yeah, I
everyone
agree.
else.
I would too. I'd love to see just Americans, just that would be fun with American
I do
accents.
Maybe
New York and accents and Boston accents.
Right, yeah.
No, don't
Chicago.
make me listen to that. That's the worst accent. New York, Mid-Atlantic, Boston. That's the worst accent. But
Absolutely.
I do like
would be so bad.
I do like the look of Wheel of Time. Like I don't want to just bag on the show endlessly. Like it looks great, and part of it is like the cast is really diverse, and it does make it's not just like being PC or whatever. Like that makes the world feel really big because not everyone looks the same.
I didn't like it at first. I love it now.
Places.
I'm like, you have some accents that, like, the professor from Money Heist has got this different accent. Of course, he's using his Spanish accent, but
it implies that the world is a lot bigger.
Right.
But
I know.
I just feel like we're not seeing enough of it.
You didn't
like,
care too much for the professor's character, like we didn't care about him. But I mean, in that opening scene, he says, "There's room for everybody with me," in my journey to,
even the voices were telling him.
He brings the king of Gildan with him. Heals his wound, and he was quickly killed off, dispatched.
Very quickly.
But there's there is a little bit at the end of the scene with they take away his power. Of course, it's called gentling. The red Aes Sedai named Leandrin was like hot to just like strip him of that power. And it was tears come out of his eyes and he loses that ability to channel.
I thought he was realizing what he'd done. I didn't really get that. Oh, I'm sad I don't have power. I was reading that more as like, I'm realizing what I have done. I've just killed this woman and all these people before her. I thought it was more like sinking in through the madness of like, I've committed atrocities.
Here's why, because of Tom's story to Rand. He says, it was telling him the story about his nephew Owen, who was gentled. So you have that right before, the end scene where Logan is his powers taken away from him. Because Logain, yeah.
Gosh.
Tom tells Rand, he's like, once that power's gone, they're never the same. They just slip away. They're sad because they can no longer use. Like I said, it's an ecstatic feeling.
Can you imagine though, like having any amount of power and then it's gone? Like that's that's one of the things too that was part of X-Men, the second X-Men movie back with Hugh Jackman. When they were shooting the darts at the people, that was one of the things that all the mutants had such a tough time with once they got hit with it. Was that power that they had known their
right
necessarily their whole life, but it's gone.
It would be like a piece of you missing,
right?
Exactly. The story from
you didn't get that from the story.
Well, it doesn't connect because it's happening in two different places, and those scenes are not buttressed together. There's stuff that's coming in between.
Yeah, they interweave the stories.
I kind of am on Sarah's side with this for me.
But I also think it was the way that scene was performed. The way that it was in the moment performed was because he's looking at the dead woman. So it's just reading is like, oh no, I've made a huge mistake. Not, oh no, I'm powered.
I don't think his reaction to he's probably sad that she died, but he's crying because he lost his ability to channel the one power.
But also remember, he saw what the real power could be with the other girl that had that big burst.
That too.
Maybe he's realizing like, oh shit.
Right.
Like,
and that was what I was going to say. We have to at least touch on the brightness of Nynaeve's power, where she.
Yeah, that was interesting. That was the one really interesting.
Did not see that happen.
In that scene, everyone was dead.
Lan
they were all dying. He was mortally wounded.
Yeah, he was fully, and Moraine was like fully run through, and Lan had his throat fully cut.
Yes, bad.
that was
showed it.
gnarly. That was like that one scene. I was like, this is gnarly. Like there's not enough of this show either needs fascinating characters or gnarly action, and there's not enough of either. But that one scene, I was like, okay. And then what's going on with her? Interesting. Like that was interesting
with
thing.
that scene too. But like with the Green Ice Tide, like throwing the energy bombs and blowing stuff up in the forest. I mean, I'm like, okay, now you have my attention.
Yeah, I need a lot more of that.
I need way more of this.
I've been thinking about The Witcher because I enjoyed The Witcher, and it's a fantasy show, and obviously a lot of points of comparison with Wheel of Time, which I don't know, maybe that offends people who like Wheel of Time or The Witcher. I don't know, but
I'm sure somebody listening.
But just having seen these two shows, I'm like in my mind, I'm like, why did The Witcher work for me when Wheel of Time doesn't? And it's a little bit back to that world building problem of The Witcher is really tightly focused on just a handful of characters who are moving through the world, and we learn about the world through context clues. And that's more interesting than just being constantly told things. But it's also that The Witcher is just chock-a-block full of monsters, and it's basically monster of the week. Cool. Every episode is girl like fighting some gnarly, disgusting beast, and then a little bit of like, and there's this army, and maybe she's special, and that's all kind of secondary to just gnarly beasts. And I feel like that's how The Witcher sort of got me. I'm like, I just like watching.
He's a monster hunter.
Yeah, I just like watching the monsters.
The Witcher 2, where they showed the other side of the monsters, where they showed that the dragon was one of the last dragons, wasn't the bad dude. And then when they were climbing the mountain to the dragon, that one like kind of werewolf thing showed up, and the guy killed it. He's like, if we would have just given it food, and that was like, away. As
someone who's not like, I do not. I eat meat, so I can't be too hypocritical about hunting, but definitely don't support big game hunting, like trophy hunting.
See,
I was like, that scene,
hunt, but I'm not a big game hunter.
Well, no, it's one thing if it's like you're eating what you're
whatever.
doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I eat meat, so that's fine. But that felt like trophy hunting. And it played in the scene as it was a sad moment, and everybody was like, "You're a piss baby! Like, why did you do that? This thing was starving." And
I've got a thing for monsters anyhow, where people think they're ugly. I'm like, he's so cute,
he's so cute with his big eyes.
Him, and I'm like, and he's like, he was starving. We could have fed him, and he would have went away. Like that for me was like really put this whole kind of a like, okay, maybe just not just monsters or dicks kind of deal.
But there's also at some point in The Witcher that they
it wasn't him though, Tooch. They were climbing the mountain to find the dragon, and this thing just like showed up in the middle of it stood up out of the grass, and
it played like if you killed a starving deer.
Yep.
Like that's how it played in the scene. It's like if you killed it, like it's not harming you, it's not a harmful animal, it's doing nothing to you, it's clearly starving. It played like if you killed a starving deer.
Dude was showing off for the girl. He was, and I can't remember the character's name, was showing off for the girl. He's like, I'll save you, and like cuts it. And
save her from what? She was not in danger.
No, and he's like, you would have fed it. Like we said, it would have went away. Like that was one of my favorite things. But at some point
in The Witcher, I think they do mention that like magic is leaving the world, that like these things are becoming less frequent and like more rare, and that in that encounter where they're like, this thing it's a beast, like it's some kind of monster, but it's starving and it's helpless because it's starving, that you do sort of get that like it's really leaving, like it's something is really going away,
right?
Kind of like how we have starving polar bears now, just to be a total bummer that we're probably going to see the extinction, but we're probably going to see the extinction of polar bears on our watch. But it's kind of the same thing of like, there's something being lost, and we are seeing it happen with these characters in real time. And that's what's missing from Wheel of Time, is they do a lot of talking about this and that, and at the tower and the chair and the whatever. And it's like, I don't care about any of this because I have no context for it.
Yeah. And that's a problem with the show writing, but we did, skip out on one storyline, which is Tom and Matt and
the Shadow
and Rand. And they're everyone's separated. Rand, Tom, and Matt are on horseback.
Can't keep any of these people straight.
Matt,
right?
Matt's the whiny guy you hate.
Yeah.
Rand is the pouty guy.
Yeah.
But
okay.
He does have a good moment in there where they're like, let's
I
sneak in.
like that where he kind of showed himself.
He talks their way out of trouble.
You're not going to kill me because you would have shot the bow with your fingers, not with your knuckles. And if I wanted to kill you, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I thought that was a pretty cool character moment for me.
Right. He talks them their way out of trouble. And then in the night, of course, Matt has a couple moments with the daughter of the farmhouse couple. and talks about his daughters and stuff like that. And then he becomes sick. He vomits up some black. It looks like whether it was a dream or he was imagining it, but he's being affected.
Pretty real to me. I don't think
he's
that was
being
a dream.
affected by their visit to that shadow
because
city.
he turns around and there's the kid right there, like immediately after he's getting sick.
He's getting sick from his time in the Shadow City, and he brought back the artifact from the Shadow City.
I forgot about the
is
artifact.
that
What? We
what
didn't
happened?
mention the artifact. Like, how the fuck are they
See
supposed to know
again,
that?
like
yeah.
not
Right.
enough.
You
to
don't
make
see
those
it until the end
connections.
where he's like, I see you. And he has the dagger in his hand, and the monster's up in the rafters because he must have come into the
Fair
house.
enough.
too.
Oh,
I
but
didn't
see, but that's
connect-
confusing. That's confusing.
It is.
Because
I
in the
agree.
first episode, they established that those Voldemort guys
Mhm.
seem to work on their own volition. Like they
Yep.
they seem like ring rate. Well, maybe not entirely of their own volition. Like they're answering to a higher,
Sure.
the bad guy or whatever. But
Yep.
they don't seem like they established that these things, these Voldemort people have their own agenda. They're doing their own thing. He's recruited his own monster army.
Yep.
And then to be like, oh, he followed him because of the knife. It's like, that's not the rule you established.
Well,
Yeah.
That's
he
not
didn't
the
follow
rule.
them because of the knife. He followed them because they think they're the Dragon Reborn. Matt.
Oh,
But
yeah,
then-
okay, no, that's what I got. Like the Voldemort guy's
Yeah.
there because he thinks that they're the. But I thought you were saying it's because of that knife.
The
It's
knife
kind of
is
what made it
making
sound
him
like,
sick.
Okay, that didn't
But
come
they
through.
don't.
at all.
They don't.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Establish that because you just.
I just thought
yeah.
he was getting sick because he has the ability to channel, and maybe he's either like knowingly or unknowingly been doing it on the down low, and it's making him sick. That's what I thought. Was
That's
happening.
exactly what I thought as well. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
See, they should. I mean, I don't know. They'll probably. They'll say it later in an episode.
I know some people. This kind of drove people crazy with the first season of The Witcher. That it's basically just a prologue. That the story of The Witcher is Geralt taking care of Ciri, training Ciri, and searching for Yennefer. And that's the story of The Witcher. And
I
it
love
takes
that.
it takes the whole first season to get to Geralt and Ciri being together, being united, and Yennefer being in the wind. That takes until the end of the first season. The whole first season is basically a prologue.
Yeah.
Maybe we
Great
should have done
prologue.
that but maybe that's the approach for Wheel of Time is
Yeah.
we need to spend some time with these kids. We need to know them. We need to know who they are. We need to know
Yeah.
their wants and dreams. We need to know what's being interrupted for them. We need to know what they're giving up when they leave their little crappy village. We need
Yep.
to care about the people who die in that initial attack.
Yep.
And we maybe need more time with the Aes Sedai and not just have them constantly be sniping at each other. We need to understand the relationships, the
I
individual
totally agree.
bonds.
And you get that in the books. I mean, you spend some time with them as kids in the village, and
And
you,
that would give this whole show more time to do what I'm talking about, which is like contextualize the world building.
yeah.
So maybe this should have been, and I'm sure again, book readers probably would have been really frustrated, but like
Yeah.
guys, it's got to stand on its own, and it's
Yep.
not working
Yeah,
right
Totally
now.
agree.
So
Totally agree.
maybe the key is that they should have just done, maybe not even 8 episodes, maybe 6
So-
episodes of prologue.
Have you seen the later episodes? Do they come back to like saying that the dagger's making Matt sick? Because that's what happens in the books.
That I never got anything from it that it was the dagger making him sick. I assumed because we saw it earlier in an episode that a man had gone crazy, and we're seeing in this episode that a man has gone crazy, and he has the black stuff swirling around him, and that boy is vomiting black stuff. So the
Right.
connection I made is, oh, he knowingly or unknowingly has been doing this, and it's making him ill. He's going mad. That's why I
Right.
thought
That
he
was
was
my assumption.
telling
as
the
well.
story about his son or friend or whoever who went crazy.
I
was-
can't remember. I think it's Lan who tells everyone that the dagger's making Matt sick.
Well, he didn't in this
but-
episode because he hasn't seen
Matt yet.
So-
Right. They haven't been reunited yet, but it could be Tom. But it looks like they're going to be separated from Tom again because Tom
Who
Let
is
them-
Tom? Literally, who is Tom?
Tom
the
is
old guy,
he's
I
the
think.
Glee man
Okay.
who's with Matt. He's the one who was playing guitar and the
Yeah. Okay, I didn't know his
Yeah.
name was Tom.
he's been taking the two under his wing,
I
and
do
showing
find
them the
his-
road.
I do find his character interesting, especially where he says like people who know the past are dangerous. I'm like, oh, then could we follow someone who knows the past? Like maybe we should be watching that show.
Mm.
See,
Mhm.
and that's part of what's missing. They haven't developed Tom enough because Tom in the books is exact. He's like Aragorn. He's got this past. He's got this history, but
Well, that's not coming through at all.
it's not coming through.
And I have to say, like, some of it's so unfair because I truly think Lord of the Rings is one of the great fantasy endings.
Absolutely.
In terms of like adaptation, cinema, whatever. It's one of the greats. And part of it is the casting is so freaking perfect. When Viggo Mortensen shows up, that first scene, it is such a perfect Han Solo moment of the minute you see him, you know at one glance everything you need to know. Like it's all in that first shot, and that by the end of his first scene, you were like, I am in. What's his deal? I want to know all the things. I'm invested. And it's a lot of it is the quality of acting. And you know, there's a couple people on Wheel of Time who are doing a good job, but I am not blown away by the acting 4 episodes in.
You know,
and I do think that the music guy is one of the better ones, and he is intriguing, and I'm more interested in him as the actor is bringing a lot to it. I am more interested in him than most people we've met. But it's still, I'm not like, the minute you're like, he's like Aragorn, I'm like, is he? Because that's not the vibe I'm getting at all.
Yeah, he is a major character in the books. But again, he's kind of, he comes into the story and out of the story and into the story in the books. I don't know how they'll handle it. Whether, I mean, like here, it looks like they'll be separated from Tom again, and then they catch up to him again. He's always been kind of a one who teaches Matt and Rand, how to be men in the books. That these are the things you need to do in the world. As far as like whether it's fighting or being careful or learning about politics or anything like that. But he was always kind of that adult voice in the room for the two, training them how to use knives and swords. When they're just not spending enough time with it.
They're not spending enough time with anyone. But you do get a little bit. You do get a little bit of him, sort of, especially because he tells the story about the guy he knew that went crazy.
His nephew.
His nephew. But you do get a little bit of a sense of like he's wise, and we saw it in the previous episode where he's like, if you're gonna steal from a corpse, the least you can do is bury it. Like, you do get a little bit like he's wise in the ways in the world that they're not. So that comes through a little bit, but
he's what they call a glee man, which is he says, I know, silly name, but he says it's a name to make people forget how dangerous we are.
Yeah, and that was interesting. And again, it's like, oh, we keep meeting these like side characters, and I'm like, maybe the show should be about you or your people.
I tell you that the character of Tom in the books was probably one of my favorite ones, and he wasn't used enough. He was used more in the book than in the show. But
he's
they're losing an opportunity.
Definitely more interesting in the show than most people that we met.
Yeah, absolutely,
for sure.
So.
And then you've got Rosamund Pike, who's doing a good job, and Daniel Henney.
Yeah, those two, again, I really like those two. I liked when we saw the bit where the one Aes Sedai woman died and you saw her warder like having like a heart attack. Like he felt it. Like you and when I liked when Lan was like, I shouldn't have had a drink. You become maudlin when I drink. I liked that when they show those connections, that's interesting. But I just not all these characters are discernible, and not all of them are memorable. And some of the ones that are supposed to be memorable, like Ninian, I'm just like, I don't care. It was interesting when you did the power thing. And that did kind of make me wonder. She keeps talking about this friend of hers who went to the tower and like things didn't go well. I'm like, was that your friend or was that you?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
But that's the most interesting thing about her. Like they're trying to set up a romance with Lan, and I know in the books they get married, whatever. I'm like, there's no chemistry on screen. Those two actors just don't have chemistry.
Right. Yeah, it's a shame. I don't. Well, again, since I was a book reader, I'm enjoying the series. Aaron, you're okay. Enjoying
the first
it so
3
far?
episodes was not pumped. The second, or excuse me, the fourth one, with all the action stuff, I'm like, okay. I mean, you got my attention a little bit more. I'd like to see a little bit more of that. But I'm the same thing as Sarah. I'm like the people that are the most intriguing. They're not spending enough time on them and spending more time on the people that aren't as interesting. But even then, not enough time on those characters to make me care.
Sarah's right. You're exactly right. The most interesting characters are the 3 actors I named: the one who plays Tom, the one who plays Lan, and the one who plays Moraine. And they're not really the main characters in the book or the story. They're major characters, but they're not main characters. And I think Sarah's right. You lose a lot with the casting. Is a major issue.
Right.
I don't like the casting of Perrin. I think he's just
Is he the sad
boring.
sack
He's the one who
guy.
killed his girlfriend, I think. didn't he?
Yeah,
He's the
the
one who
that-
accidentally killed his girlfriend.
When he
or-
showed up the first time in this episode, I literally just went ugh
Yeah,
out loud by myself in my living room
I know.
because he just is. And I know it would infuriate book readers, but I really think like cut a couple of these kids. We just don't need them.
Now, the thing, there was a thing going on with about Perrin, and that was you'd have to go. I'd have to go back and watch it because I haven't seen. I've only seen it one episode where he kills his girlfriend Layla. People were saying that she was about to kill him, and that's why his instincts like reacted to turn around and cut her with the axe.
I would have to go back and watch that episode, and I'm
Me too.
just not going to do that.
Right? I don't know if I will either.
What I remember of that was that it was during the attack on their village, and it was just very
Yeah.
chaotic.
Yep.
And I just
Yeah.
thought it was like
I feel like I do
in the
remember her
chaos.
running, like yelling and running with
At
something
him?
above her head, but like same as Sarah, I'm not going to go back and see
Yeah.
what it was, but
the
I
only-
guess
I don't
based on
think I
what
would
her-
go back unless they did like an extended version.
oh no.
You know, I might watch it maybe.
That's the last
Well,
thing I would sit through.
right.
I would as a fan of the books, but I forgot.
I haven't watched the extended versions of Lord of the Rings, by the way. I know
Oh,
everyone's
really?
like, "Oh, they're amazing." I'm like, I'm good with the 9 hours that I saw. But I have to
you
agree
get
with
so
Noel
much more
here.
out of it.
The other Eyes to Eyes PA, it's funny, their PAs, was a standout.
PA,
Yes,
whoops.
I like that guy. There was the very sort of chatty, personable, amiable warder who I did like, and they had a good
Stefan.
scene where they're all kind of having. See, no one's names making any impression. But they had kind of a fun scene where they're sitting around the fire talking and stuff like that. Makes
Maybe
it feel a
two
little
of the
more lived
warders
in.
had a little relationship too.
Yeah, oh, for sure,
Looked
two
like
of them
they were
did. For sure,
romantic.
two of them did. But it was those
Right.
kind of scenes like feels a little more lived in. They're talking about things like
Mhm.
they give you context of their past together and their
Yeah.
relationships, and
Noelle's
it's not
right, too.
stiff. It's not stiff. Like
Nope.
there's a stiffness to so much of the show that I'm like,
Mhm.
So,
It-
do you think?
man.
I want to ask you. This is more for Sarah and Aaron too. Do you think they tried to hook us with the monsters in the first? No, that was the.
I feel like maybe they knew like the monsters are going to be because I it's Ian McShane's kind of funny line about Game of Thrones was that it's tits and dragons.
Yeah.
And I do always kind of say dragons make everything better, but it's true. People like monsters.
Mhm.
People
I
like
love
stories about monsters. I mean, again, going all the way back to cave paintings. What are the narratives depicted on those ancient
Mhm.
walls?
Mhm.
Men attacking
The
beasts.
woolly mammoth.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like we love stories about monsters. And
Yeah.
so I do think they kind of understand like that's a good hook. Again,
Wouldn't
it works
it-
for Witcher. So
Yeah, it works for Witcher. We're just talking about Witcher. Wouldn't it have been better to save the monsters maybe for spend some time with the kids, maybe get them a little
well,
bit.
it's that idea of like if we had a prologue, if we had 5
Yeah.
or 6 episodes, it was just invested in like this town and these people, and it's normal in this world,
Mhm.
and then it's attacked, and Moraine arrives,
Yep.
and all the things happen. Maybe that would have been a little different.
I totally agree. We're almost an hour in. Usually we're done about this time. Any last thoughts, Aaron, on Wheel of Time? You're going to continue watching?
I will. Yeah, I mean, obviously we're doing the show. I'm going to continue watching, and like Sarah said, she's getting paid too, so she's going to. I
Sarah's,
to.
have you seen all of the episodes yet, Sarah?
I've seen up to 7, so I haven't
Okay,
seen the
there's
last
8.
episode.
Okay.
And I don't think they're screening the last episode. I don't think
Okay.
they are. It hasn't shown up yet.
Okay. So
but-
do you think that it's
But
because they don't want anybody giving away the ending?
Well, it's
Oh, yeah,
it's
for
not
sure.
it's not unusual. Like with Hawkeye is 6 episodes. We got the first 4 for review.
Mhm.
It's not unusual that they hold the last episode or 2 back.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I'll stick with it, but
I'll have to start my.
I don't enjoy it.
Right. Well, yeah,
I enjoy Hawkeye. I recommend Hawkeye.
Mhm.
I do
Secret Family aside, I do. This is the Hawkeye I always wanted to see.
I'm waiting for the Secret Family to die. To be honest.
Well, in the Ultimates, in that comic book run, which is the supposedly realistic one, it's the one where they drew Nick Fury to look like Samuel L. Jackson. Black Widow is a double agent, and she kills his family. And
Now, see, I would love to see that.
And it's big.
Sonic.
It's big conflict. It's like, okay, if you're going to introduce Clint Barton's secret family and Natasha's going to go rogue and murder them, that's one thing. But that's not what they've done here. And I just think I love Clint, and the Hawkeye show is giving me the flavor of Clint I've always wanted in the MCU.
Good.
But we are saddled with this stupid fucking secret family.
That's fun.
I tell you. All right. So I think we're at the end here. We're at 1 hour, which is right on for us. So I'll have to restart my rewatch of season 1 of The Witcher soon, because December 19th, Witcher season 2 drops. And
You bet.
these two will probably coincide. We'll be wrapping up Wheel of Time. They'll probably overlay 1 week or 2. We'll be talking about Witcher 2. Can't wait for that.
I can't talk about it yet, but if you liked season 1, you're gonna like season 2.
I love
Very
season
good,
1.
very
Love The
good.
Witcher. I love all this fantasy type stuff, so I'm sure I'll enjoy it. I just want to.
Well, it's just perfect casting with Henry Cavill. Like, it's the perfect use. And I know the way that he looks, like, oh, he's a perfect Superman. For the type of actor he is, I don't think that he is a good Superman as an actor. I think he's a better Clark Kent than he is a Kal-El. Which I know is a little bit splitting hairs, but it's because of the type of actor he is. But he's perfect as Geralt. He's so good as Geralt.
Yep.
And it's like, if anyone ever thought he was a bad actor, he's not a bad actor. He's just like Keanu Reeves. It's very specific what he does.
Pronounced it Geralt. Am I pronouncing it wrong?
I don't know how to.
I don't know
it's
what it is
probably
either,
Geralt.
but I think it's Geralt.
Gerald. I literally
Gerald.
in my head I just call him Gerald.
So do I.
Jerry the
That's
Witcher.
fun.
I want to
Jerry.
know. I don't know whether my wife will like Cowboy Bebop, but I know I will.
I think she will.
I don't.
I do
Does
think she
she?
will.
Does she like noir stuff? Does she kind of like?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, 'cause
old school.
it's-
It's got that.
It's got a old
She
school
sometimes
noir
there's a
kinda
little
feel.
disconnect when we get to fantasy and sci-fi for her.
It's not
but-
hard sci-fi. Like, it's
No,
not. If she sat through Foundation,
That was all me. She got to a certain point and then
it's
gave up.
not hard. I would say it's more comparable to like Star Wars level sci-fi. Like, it's not. There's a lot of touchstones with westerns, with noir. It's not hard sci-fi.
That's all. All right, you two. We will see you back here same time on Sunday.
You
Talking
betcha.
episode 5.
We are coming on to podcast platforms. You can pick up our episodes on podbean.com. We are now on Google, Apple, and others are pending. And Noelle's Barton's wife seems to know a lot of the goings on the other underworld. I read that as Clint hasn't told his kids about his Ronin expedition, but he's obviously not keeping secrets from his wife.
Right.
Which, if you're going to live that life that he's living, you couldn't. She would have to know everything. What I want to know, though, is like, I have just so many questions about the secret family. Do the neighbors know? Like, since I could see that the secret family would work when he was a SHIELD agent and his identity was probably protected by being undercover and like, you know, but at the point that he's Hawkeye, which the show makes clear, they kind of make a joke about how unpopular he is. Like, he gets recognized a lot. Everywhere he goes, people recognize him. So at this point with his secret family, does everyone just know that that's Hawkeye's family? Like, how do you keep it? It's it's so stupid. It's so stupid. It invites so many questions that you can't possibly answer in a way that isn't going to be just goddamn ridiculous. So.
Oh, great to see that. Those drop every Friday, I think, right?
Wednesdays.
Oh, okay.
The Disney Marvel stuff. I think actually maybe all the Disney stuff moved to Wednesdays because they want you to go into their movies on Fridays.
That
makes sense.
Gotcha. Very cool. Very cool. Did not know that. All right. Again, be back here next week, 8:30-ish. Usually 8:30 is when we come on.
Yep.
And we will see you all next week. Thanks, you too.
Yep. Sounds good, man.
Bye.
All right.
See you, everybody.
Bye.